Hoardganize Podcast. I am your host, professional organizer Rachel Seavey, and it's time to get organized. Hey collectors, today I am talking about friends and family members, people who love or care about or are concerned about someone they know who hoards. So if you're having some hoarding issues, this is definitely a podcast that you want to share with your friends and family members so that they can try and understand what you're going through. It might help them process why you struggle with making hard decisions. But this is actually a podcast for people who are concerned about someone who has hoarding disorder. So it could be your neighbor, it could be someone you're dating, it could be your spouse and you live together, it could be your child, someone from church, it could be anybody that you know that you're concerned that they're suffering from hoarding disorder. And I don't use the word suffering lightly because that's actually what is going on inside of your loved one. They are truly suffering. So I wanted to provide you with 5 detailed tips. I've gone over this in the past, but I wanted to make it a little bit more robust on how you can help your loved one that you feel is struggling with hoarding disorder. And I want to say, I understand your frustration. A lot of the times when I'm working with clients, I am working with their friends and their family members and their neighbors come by, and it's not just the person themselves. It can affect everybody around them. So I do understand that you might be frustrated. You might feel like, I hear this a lot, a dump truck should just back up to the property and everything should be unloaded to the dumpster. And then I've heard, maybe the house could just be flattened. And so you might feel like that. You might say, my gosh, my family member, my loved one, my neighbor is just hanging on to a bunch of junk. But I really want you to step back from that and come more from a place of compassion, because this person is suffering inside and they are going through emotional turmoil. So I have 5 tips on how you can actually help your loved one that is suffering from hoarding disorder. Tip number 1. Be non-judgmental. This is something I talk about all the time. This is feedback I get about myself. I try and be as non-judgmental as possible. You might walk in and it's filled to the brim with whatever. You don't want to make the person feel really judged or really scrutinized. I know it's hard to not gasp. I know it's hard to not have wide eyes and say, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? Try your best to be non-judgmental. You really can't help somebody if you're judging them. It's just impossible. So I want you to think, is this loved one struggling? Are they battling depression? Instead of looking around or covering your mouth or saying something really nasty, this is when I want you to really reflect on this person's life. You're going to try and understand why they have a hard time and not roll your eyes or sigh heavily or run out and get in your car and never come back, because that's really not helpful either. And unfortunately, I've heard that story several times. You want to be non-judgmental. A lot of the times these people haven't had anyone in their home, and now maybe there's an emergency, maybe they broke a hip or something happened and now their neighbors or their loved ones are involved, and it could be really overwhelming. They could feel really exposed because they're a really private person. They could feel shame. Shame is a huge thing, and you don't want to make anyone that you care about or you're concerned about or anyone at all feel shamed. That's not fair and it's not helpful at all. Tip number 2, suggest therapy. Therapy is something now with a pandemic. I see commercials and stuff where you can just visit a therapist on Zoom. So that would be really cool. But maybe you could suggest therapy. Maybe you could ask around. You could do some research on the internet. You could schedule a call with me and I'll help you find a therapist that would really help this person. You definitely want to suggest therapy because a lot of the reasons, not usually all of the reasons, but a part of the reason is usually this person has suffered some sort of trauma. So releasing that trauma and getting help with that trauma will help them release that clutter and help them get rid of their hoarding disorder. And so definitely tip number 2 is to reach out, suggest a therapist. Don't be too pushy. Don't call them crazy. You don't want to call anyone crazy. That's not a very nice thing to say. I know that you're frustrated, but you really want to suggest therapy as a tool to have them be helped and not just as something nasty to say. Tip number 3, hire a professional organizer or a professional cleaning company that specializes in working with people with hoarding disorder. There are a lot of us out there, and we are trained and we are non-judgmental, and we are giving your loved one kind of a buffer between you and them, kind of like a mediator, so to say, because a lot of the times when I'm working with this person, they're feeling overwhelmed by their judgmental family member or neighbor, whoever it is. And so with me working with them, they feel like they have someone to confide in, someone that's non-judgmental, that can see both sides of the story and that just wants to achieve the result, which is whatever you come up with as a team. So I definitely suggest hiring a professional organizer. If you don't know where to start and your loved one doesn't know to start, a trained, skilled professional organizer who specializes in working with someone with hoarding disorder will know exactly where to start, where to call for recycling, where to get donations taken to, how many people it would take. So by hiring a specific company like this, you end up saving a lot of your own time and energy and helping them, and it gets done in an efficient and organized manner. Now, you definitely want to make sure that your loved one is agreeing. Do not do this behind their back. Do not clean somebody out when they have no idea it's going on. That could be the most traumatic thing that you do to this person. They will write you off. They will continue to hoard, and they probably won't ever ask for help again. So while hiring a professional organizer is a great solution, you also want to make sure that this person, the person you love and care about who's suffering, is completely involved in accepting of the process of allowing strangers in their home. It gets very messy when family members try and arrange this. I personally won't do it. Family members say, oh, they're, on vacation or they're in the hospital and they would never let us do this, but we're going to do it anyway. That's not helpful. Tip number 4, offer to help, and genuine help, compassionate help, not help criticizing or critiquing them or telling them all their stuff is junk. Refer to tip number 1, being non-judgmental. Tip number 4, offer to help, and think to yourself, is this person disabled or elderly or clinically depressed and can't take out their trash? Think of why they could use your help. And maybe you can't tolerate the smell. Maybe you are allergic to cats, but maybe you could pick up things like donations or laundry or clean laundry and drop it off to them. Offer to help in a way that doesn't make you feel like you're grossed out or frustrated, but do offer help, because every little bit counts. Even if they just stick out a bag of recycling a couple times a week and you just drive by and put it in the dumpster for them, maybe that would be helpful for them. Maybe that would make them feel like they have somebody on their side. It could give them some accountability. Maybe it's hard for them to go up and down the stairs and all the way to the dumpster, and you doing that allows them to do more things inside of their home that they wouldn't normally have the energy for. So I really want you to offer help and try and find some simple tasks that you can help do on a regular basis until they are starting to feel better. And, every little bit counts. It does take a village. And so the best thing that you can do for yourself and for your loved one, if you feel like you can't be helpful or you can't be judged, is you just want to make sure that you're an ear for them to listen to. So tip number 5 is listen. Maybe you live across the country and you can't help your loved one or your friend or your college roommate get over and go through their clutter physically. You're just physically not living close enough, or maybe you personally have some disabilities and you can't help your loved one, but you're still concerned. So what can you do? Tip number 5 is listen. A lot of the times people are struggling with so much turmoil inside, emotional conflict, that all that they really need is somebody to listen to them and not be judgmental and not argumentative, but just listen to them. It's unbelievably helpful to just be able to listen to somebody, and it allows them to kind of bounce solutions off of you if you can just hold that non-judgmental, compassionate space for them listening, whether it's on the phone, or maybe you could do a Zoom, or maybe you could just say, leave me a long message and I'll check it later. Whatever you can do to hear them out, to help them sort out their thoughts, will in turn also help them sort out their clutter, because they'll feel like they have somebody to bounce things off of and somebody that's supporting them. And a lot of the times we're planning on what we're going to say next, or we're so tired of hearing the same excuses. This happened to me and then I got laid off and now I can't clean up, because, sometimes it does feel like excuses when you are capable of being organized. But you've got to understand that hoarding is a disorder. It is something that is causing the person that you care about to suffer. And instead of arguing with them or, countering them on, well, you said you would do that last year, just listen. Just listening from a non-judgmental, trying not to be frustrated position will really help your loved one feel like they're being supportive. If you are watching this on YouTube and you feel like you want to share it with your friends or family member because they've been on your case and you want them to be more compassionate, please make sure you're subscribed. Click the notification bell, hit the comments and leave me something, and make sure that you've done a thumbs up. And make sure you're following me on Instagram under Collector Care and Facebook under Collector Care. Until next time, collectors. And remember, happiness is a place between too little and too much.